And I want to remind you, for all of us for the next 12 to 18 months, life is going to be an asterisk. College kids are going to graduate online. Everybody's Phoenix University, even kids at Harvard. Is that an asterisk degree? Our presidential election may be decided by over 50% mail-in votes. That favors Democrats. You're going to have to put an asterisk on that too, right? We understand people will lose jobs, and they did nothing wrong. It's the new world. It's the new normal. It's the new reality. Sports has always been filled with asterisks. We just don't use them very much. Tom Brady, the current dynasty, and the GOAT at quarterback. Let's see. The NFL moved Peyton Manning out of his division very early, and they had multiple scandals. No asterisk. The Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship last year. Steph and KD, the two best Warrior players, out. Clay was hurt. Golden State's first win over LeBron. Kyrie Irving played half of one game in the series, right? And Kevin Love missed all of it. We don't give asterisks. Look at the New York Yankees. They have an annual asterisk. The Yes Network. They simply can buy more players in a sport with no salary cap. We just have to realize baseball right now is arguing about money. I think the players should cave. Not that I'm pro-owners, but I do think people that are rigid and people that are stubborn are going to lose in the new normal. Let's not worry about plans, about how it used to be. We know, I said this the other day, there's never been a great movie with a bad ending. Ever. Never in the history of movie making. Nothing's ever won the Academy Award for Best Picture that had a really bad last 12 minutes. But there are movies that have been kind of clunky and average with great endings that get nominated and occasionally, albeit rarely, win. Our life for the next year is going to be one big asterisk. It's okay. Let's just end it well and get back to business in baseball and the NBA. Chris Haynes now joining us, NBA reporter for Fox Sports via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network. So you reported, Chris, there was a private group of stars that came together, just talked yesterday. So discuss the story you broke and what transpired, if you could, Chris.
Yeah, well, I published a story yesterday on Yahoo Sports. Please, everybody, go check it out if you haven't had a chance. But it was basically a superstar conference call. It was arranged by Chris Paul, who is the president of the Players Association. On that call was LeBron James, Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Stephen Curry. I feel like I'm missing somebody, but you get the gist. And basically, they were going over the pros and cons, Colin, of resuming the season or canceling the season. And, I was told Kawhi Leonard, he was really verbal, on that call. And basically, a lot of guys were just stressing the concerns about going out there playing with risk of contracting the virus and then taking it back home to their loved ones. And so at the end of the call, which I was told lasted for about 45 minutes, they were all in agreement that if they felt comfortable with the safety measures that were in place, that they felt it was in their best interest of going out there and playing. And then there's a lot of implications, Colin, with the CBA coming up, and if the season were canceled, how that could negatively impact the CBA as far as how their future and their salary goes. And so there's a lot of business that was discussed on that call. But at the end of the day, they felt like it's an obligation that they felt they need to go out there and play if all the safety measures are in place.
Now, Chris, is it your understanding that they would go right into the playoffs and not finish up any regular season games?
It's not that concrete yet, but I did listen to the conference call that Adam Silver had with the players last Friday, and he made it sound as if this hiatus continued out any longer, that they would probably lean towards just starting in the playoffs, because he said he couldn't guarantee. He told a player this. I believe it was Andre Iguodala that asked that question on the conference call. Asked about what do the teams that are on the bubble, how do they prepare? What am I to tell them to do during this time off? And Adam Silver said he really couldn't guarantee that they would have the chance to play their way into the playoffs if they're one of those teams that's on the outside of the top 8 in each conference. And so it sounds like we're probably leaning towards starting the season with the playoffs if it were to resume, but that's not set in stone.
Chris Haynes joining us. Is there what they call a drop-dead date? Is there a date in which Adam Silver is going to say, guys, I got to make a decision today, because you're going to need at least 3 weeks of training camp, I would think, to be in NBA player shape. Is there a date that Adam Silver has discussed where we either make a decision, we're going or we're not?
The only thing that he has said to the players in ownership that it will be some point in June. Some point in June where there's a deadline date. Now, he hasn't issued that date. He hasn't issued that time frame publicly, but that is the case. So June, at some point in June, I would say probably mid-June, will probably be around the deadline date as far as when he has to make a decision. And as far as training camp to prepare for the season, if it did resume, he said he's hearing a range from 3 to 6 weeks as far as what it would take to get these guys in not proper shape, but in the best shape possible to step into a season, because they will step into a rigorous season. They will be fighting basically for their playoff lives at that point.
By the way, individual facilities are opening up. What do your sources say on how that's landing with players? Some open, some don't. Is there a sense of unfairness, or that's the reality of the pandemic?
That's the reality. Everybody understands that, this it's not going to be fair all across the board. You have to remember, Colin, not all players are participating and going to their facility right now. There's still players who feel uncomfortable with going there with all the measures. You got to be 12 feet away from your spotter if you're getting weight training. So, I spoke with CJ McCollum about it last week, a star guard for the Portland Trailblazers, and he said, can you really get a proper work regimen in with those type of restrictions? And if those restrictions are in place, if that's what's needed, is it even worth it to go to the facility to get the work done? Is it worth going through all that hassle, possibly coming up with something and taking it home to your loved ones? So there's still guys out there that's kind of skeptical, and they're going to stay home and get their work done that way. But as of right now, it's optional. If you want to go, you can go.
LeBron James, do you believe he's one of the voices that wants to go back?
Yes. He's definitely one of the voices who wants to return. And I will say this, he wants to return under the proper safety standards. But all the superstars that were on that call want to return. And I will say this, Colin, it's significant because of the weight and influence that these players have. If the superstar players are saying, we need to get out there and play, that's going to hold significant weight when they're going back to their peers and giving them the pros and cons of playing versus not playing. So that's why it's significant, because those guys right now, I would expect Chris Paul to relay the message to Adam Silver in the league, to the voice their decision-making process and what they discussed on that call Monday. And so I think right now it's still up to the health experts, to decide if it's a go or not. But I think for the most part, we probably will have the players on board.
All right, Chris Haynes covering the NBA for over a decade. We appreciate it. Go read his article, Yahoo Sports. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Colin.
You bet. We are back in studio today. Chris, obviously, at his place, so where most people are. So we feel great gratitude and safety, actually, here on our Fox lot. Good to have you in. Scott Boras, legendary baseball agent, will be joining us top of next hour to talk about baseball situation, which I thought optically wasn't ideal. Too much talk about revenue share when you're looking at 15% unemployment. But in fairness, when you get into these negotiations, you start at a point often to get you to another point. So you want strong voices and kind of strong feelings on what matters to your players if you represent them, if you're an agent or the head of a players association. It can sometimes be strategic because you're trying to get to a place. I will say this in regards to the NBA. Every sport in my life has a different culture. Baseball has the longest contracts. They're guaranteed, and there's no salary cap. Football, it's run by the owners and the GMs. Even stars can get cut without much of a punitive cap hit. The NBA doesn't have the long contracts like baseball. You can't be cut. But it is star-driven, and in my life, the players get the coaches fired, not vice versa. So every sport is different. MLS, nobody's talking about. I saw some MLS practices yesterday. Soccer feels like, to me, you use your feet, not your hands. That kind of stuff matters. I think hockey, nobody touches the puck. You've got glass around the rink. Everybody wears gloves. I will say this about the pandemic, and I find this to be the case in crisis. We know very little. I mean, Florida's been less restrictive. Their death and infection rates much lower to northern states with a much more strict guideline on opening up. We don't know. Like everything else, it's become a political balloon, and it wears me out. We really know very little.